Good evening, good afternoon. Welcome back to High Top Sports Oregon. I'm Clay the Professor. We got Derek the Duck. But first, I want to thank our proud sponsor, BetUS. We will be doing a little bit of gambling on the Texas Arizona State game. Can't wait for that. Big day for the Ducks. How are we feeling?
Yeah, I'm feeling good, man. We've been waiting for this day for a long time. Oregon finally gets their redemption into the playoffs again today in the granddaddy of them all, the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, playing a very familiar opponent in Ohio State. I'm pretty jacked up about this one. I've been pretty jacked up about it since the playoff bracket was released. I think a lot of us kind of foresaw this matchup being something we saw again here in the Rose Bowl. So I'm excited about it. I said before the cast, I'm nervous, obviously, for good reason. No, I mean these are arguably the two best teams in college football right now, matching up against each other in the Rose Bowl. So I don't know how you couldn't be excited for it.
For sure. Do you feel like it could be a mini home game for Oregon? Obviously, Pasadena is not. I mean, it's not next door to Oregon,
Mm-hmm.
to Eugene, but definitely closer if you're going to be a driver than Ohio.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't necessarily think so. Just because Ohio State typically travels extremely well, especially into Pasadena. I mean, you can go back and look at the last time Ohio State and Oregon played in the Rose Bowl when Ohio State played Utah in the Rose Bowl a couple of years ago. It was very Ohio State heavy, and I kind of have a feeling that's kind of going to be the same thing again. Not necessarily saying it's Ohio State heavy, but I do think like the fan balance is going to be a lot closer than you kind of expect with Ohio State traveling cross country. And I think the Ducks are like it's like 12 hours down the highway or something like that down to Pasadena. So I don't know. I don't think it'll be for either team have like kind of that mini home field advantage, kind of like we would see in the next round for the winner of this, most likely playing Texas in
Yeah.
Texas. So I don't think we're going to see that type of advantage. I think both fan bases really show out today, though.
All right. So let's go ahead and address the ugly part of this game. That's the run game. Oregon has week after week almost seemingly gotten a little bit worse at the run defense at times. It seems like it's one of those things they're gonna have to be able to stop those two Ohio State backs.
Oh, 100%. I think, once again, we'll get into some more of the keys, but I think it's definitely starts up front on the defensive line. Not even only just stop being able to stop the two-headed monster that Ohio State has, but just kind of continuously keeping pressure into the backfield on Will Howard as well. Because, if that defensive line is kind of creating disruption all game, I don't think it's going to be easy for Ohio State to kind of get in a rhythm, especially when they're trying to get the ball in the playmakers' hands outside the Jeremiah Smiths. Um, of the world. So I think you're 100% right, though. If that run game, if the Quinton Judkins, kind of snaps and the Travion Henderson, I think it could be a long game for Oregon. And I think kind of that works twofold, too, because then you're giving Ohio State the keys to run the tempo of the game, too. And that's something that, albeit they run a similar style offense and kind of run similar paces, you also don't want to give that advantage to Ohio State. In one of these type of environments, you don't want to give any advantages away, let alone, kind of the tempo of the game. You don't want to take the play calling abilities out of your own hands and kind of giving it back to the defense saying, where you all of a sudden you feel like you need to rush, you need to be up tempo, or you kind of go the other way where you feel like you need to slow things down. So I do think it starts on that defensive line though, and if they can stop that run game, we're off to an excellent start. But it's really hard to kind of hone in on one Ohio State position group with, Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka too on the outside, and like Carnell Tate as well. So like they have obviously an extremely talented wide receiver core, um, and a two-headed monster in the backfield too. So that most definitely makes it difficult to kind of keep the offense under wraps.
For sure, but Ohio State is going to have to deal with the two-headed monster of Oregon, also
Mm-hmm.
with obviously Jordan James just being an absolute monster this year, and then got some guys like Noah that can catch the ball out of the backfield extremely well. We've seen them do that. I would kind of like to see maybe a little jet sweep action early in the game, just to kind of get that defense off of 8 guys, 7 guys in the box, because I think that's what they're going to try to do right away.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'd like to see Noah get some jet sweep or whoever, one of the speed
Yeah,
players.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, what I would really like to see is a lot of those read option plays. I think, you kind of utilizing Dylan Gabriel's legs. Obviously, he can move a little bit. He's not a run first quarterback by any stretch. He kind of likes to sit in the pocket and be able to navigate it and let things unfold in the secondary as they will. But we've seen it time and time again this year with Dylan Gabriel where he's able to kind of utilize those legs against the Boise States early on in the season. Against the Ohio States, we saw him take off. And I think that's kind of going to have to be a factor here again today. Obviously, like you said, I have a feeling they'll try to stack the box a little bit and rely on their secondary players to hold their own against the Oregon wide receiver core. So, Ohio State does have one of the best secondaries in the country. I don't think anybody's going to argue that. But kind of in order to neutralize that, I do want to see Dylan Gabriel kind of run a lot of those read options, those little, you know, two option quick passes. I'm all for it. I think that's kind of going to be a way to keep Ohio State's defense off balance a little bit, um, and hopefully find a way to get the Oregon offense into rhythm nice and early in the game.
Yeah, the game does have a feeling too. It could definitely just turn into a track meet. At any snap of the game, any snap of the game, it could start turning into a track meet. I think if I'm Oregon, I'm not scared of that because Oregon can score in the best of them minus the third quarter for some strange odd reason. Um, but I really think that I think that Oregon is ready for Ohio State if they want to go, you know, four down or 4 yards in a cloud of dust every single play, or if they want to go track meet and try to just go over the top. I think Oregon's a team that can score with about anybody in the nation. That being said, you're gonna have to have a big game from one of these wide receivers not named Tez. I mean, we've been screaming it from the mountaintops weekly, and you see flashes of Evan Stewart. You see flashes of Holden, and it's just like, when is it going to be your breakout game? And I think they have to. One of those guys and or both are going to have a breakout game to get the dub over Ohio State.
Yeah, and I think this Oregon wide receiver core kind of has a couple things going for them in this game that we did not see on that October 12th matchup. I mean, first, it's got to remember Trayshawn Holden was ejected in the first quarter for
Yep,
spitting on someone.
I forgot
So
about
he
that.
was down that game. Yep, Gary Bryant, who was right behind Trayshawn on that depth chart, he was out for the early part of the season. He wasn't there either. So then all of a sudden they're relying on guys like Justice Lowe, which he had a great game, but at the same time, you want to have your best playmakers out on the field when you're playing the best competition at all times. Um, and then just kind of going back to what you were saying about it could turn into a track meet. The hard thing about predicting games like this is both Oregon and Ohio State, they both have great defenses and offensive. I could truly seeing this being a game where it's a 45-42 type of game, or I could also see it being a world where we're looking at like a 24-18, 24-20 type of game, just because of the defenses that they are afforded. And just looking at what Ohio State did the last time they were on the field playing Michigan, their offense looked inept at best. I don't think that's going to be the case. Obviously, they've had a ton of prep work, albeit Ryan Day has struggled in the big game. Historically, I do think he's going to have his team ready to play today. Um, how can you not? But yeah, I don't know, man. I'm excited to kind of just see how this one plays out, just because there are so many different avenues in which this one can kind of roll.
For sure, for sure. And let's go ahead. Let's do a little bit of gambling. I want to thank our proud sponsor, BetUS. Right now, betus.com. Go ahead, check them out. Use the code YouTube150 for 150% off your first deposit, 125 off your second deposit, up to $2,000. Derek's still here. I don't know why that other camera's not working, but we got Texas and Ohio. Texas, Arizona State, 13.5 is the point spread for Texas, giving up 13.5. 1 o'clock game, 52 is the over. What are you taking, Derek?
I'm going to take the Arizona State points.
Oh,
Yeah, give me the Arizona State plus 13 and a half. It's such a tough game. One thing we talked about right before the show, once again, is Arizona State. They're a fairly one-dimensional team. That's not saying that they can't spread the ball out a little bit, but obviously, they want to get that ball into Cam Scadaboo's hand and kind of see what he's able to do in the backfield. And Texas, they've been a program who's been streaky at best. Albeit they were ranked what they are, and their record speaks for itself. but I don't think there's anyone who's going to argue that, they've definitely looked ugly at times throughout the season, just like, the majority of teams. But I'm
They
rolling with my boy Kenny Dillingham.
they
Yeah, yeah,
also
yeah, right.
they also look like the best team at times, which is scary.
And that's the thing. You don't know what you're going to get. To be real frank with you, Prof, today could be one of those days where Texas wins by 35. It very well could be one of those days where they just show out. Offense is clicking, the defense, their playmakers are making the plays they're supposed to. Cam Scadaboo gets shut down, and all of a sudden they're having to lean on Sam Levitt. And it's just, he's a fine quarterback. However, they just don't have the athletes Texas do. It could be one of those games.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to choose to believe until I see it on the field that Kenny Dillingham is going to have his crew ready to go, and that he's going to at least keep it close in this one. Arizona State, they're such a scrappy team that, my hope is that they keep things interesting today, kind of break the cycle of we still haven't seen a one-score game in the playoff yet. I'm kind of hoping this is the first one that we see. But I'm going to take the Arizona State 13, plus 13 and a half. I don't think they win. Um, and I'm not super confident in it. Maybe it's more of a picking with my heart thing, but give me the Devils.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna take Texas money line. I'm gonna stay away from the points, like I said. Give me Texas money line, and go ahead and give me the over 50. I think it's gonna be a little bit higher scoring game. Watch, it's gonna be like 7-14, but um, it's one of those things where I think if Texas can put it all together, they're one of the best teams in the nation. Um, so let's go ahead. Let's talk about our pick on offense and our pick on defense. Who is your player of the day on offense? Who are you thinking?
I'm going to go back to that October 12th matchup, and Evan Stewart had his breakout performance against Ohio State. Um, I think everybody inside that Oregon locker room knows today that they can't just lean on Tez. You can't just lean on JJ and Noah Whittington. I think, like you said before, I think one of these receivers is going to have to step up, kind of inclusive of the tight ends, whether that be T. Ferg or Kenyon Sadiq has a couple of special packages. Maybe he makes his name known. But I'm going to go back to Evan Stewart again. It's so hard to not pick him when he's kind of that home run threat. Um, this is kind of the defense that if he's going to do something against it could be one of these where he's is that home run hitter. You're going to need one of those plays at some point throughout the game. We saw it in that October 12th matchup, and I think they're going to try to get him the ball downfield again in this matchup. Um, I think if the Ducks are going to pull this one off today, I think Evan Stewart's going to have a big game. He is my offensive pick for the day.
My offensive pick for the day. I'm really gonna take a dark shot here. Give me Kenyon Sadiq with around the same amount of catches, 3-4 catches. Listen though, 3-4 catches.
Mm-hmm.
It gets tight in the red zone. Give me 2 touchdowns, 4 catches for like 45 yards. Kenyon Sadiq. Little Penn State
Prof,
esque.
you're speaking my language. I would love to see that boy Kenyon show up, especially like you said in the red zone. He is a big red zone threat, and I think kind of if Oregon's going to take advantage in those tight spaces on the field, it's going to be at the tight end position where they might have just a little bit of a athletic matchup against the linebackers if they're playing man, or being able to find the soft spot in the zone with those backers. I think that's a great pick. I don't think he's going to have a ton of yardage per se. I don't think
Yep.
we're going to see him have 7-8 catches like you said. However, when he does touch the ball, magic just tends to happen. Whether it's jet sweeps, whether it's these little screen games, whether it's just red zone targets. I think that's a fine pick, and I really really hope that to be true because I think Kenyon Sadiq's going to be a name that not even Oregon fans, I think college football fans in general are going to get to know really well over the next year.
For sure. I kind of feel it this is going to be his game. I don't want to line up on the 5 yard line in I formation and try to pound it down the teeth of the Ohio State defense to get a touchdown. I think that Oregon has been able to do that with some teams with the running backs. I'm not trying to do that. Let's just create a good play for Sadiq, get him out in space, corner the end zone, drop it in the bucket, and touchdown.
I love it. I could see it. He's got that big athletic frame, especially in the red. Just such a threat in the red zone, and especially kind of when the Oregon rolls out their 2 tight end sets with T. Ferg too, where you have 2 legitimate receiving threats as your tight end positions. I could absolutely see that being the case for the day.
What's your player on defense?
This is the one I've been thinking a lot about. Initially I wanted to say Jabbar Muhammad. he's going to be the man primarily responsible for Jeremiah Smith, who I think, he's been very vocal this week about, what he expects out of himself. Um, but I think I'm going to go a little deeper, and I'm going to go out with one of our favorite boys, Kobe Savage. I think, Will Howard is going to try to press this ball downfield at times, just between Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Egbuka, Carnell Tate. They have so many options that I think they're going to have to try to, stretch the field a little bit at times. Um, and, I'm going to lean on our corners who just do their jobs. That I'd love to say Jabbar, but in my head right now, I was like, we might not hear anything from Jabbar today, which would be fantastic, right? If we're not hearing cornerback names, that's great. But I think if we're going to see a big turnover in that secondary, I don't think it's going to be Jabbar. I think it's going to be on a deep shot. Kobe Savage comes in, kind of does what he's able to do. Another thing, he's been highly effective in the run game throughout the year. He's kind of able to, play a little more of that nickel spot at times. Kind of like our Nico Reeds and Brandon Johnsons of the world. They have a lot of those like hybrid type secondary players. And I think Kobe Savage has a big game today. And not only in coverage, I think he makes his presence felt in the run game as well. I could see this being a game where he has, 6, 7 tackles, 2 pass deflections. Maybe he gets an INT. Could be a big game for Kobe today.
For sure. Go ahead. Give me Ugangale. I think he might have a big game. Trenches, 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 like we have talked about over and over and over. I don't think the defense is going to be as rusty as the offense after being off this long week. I think the 3 weeks actually. I think they're going to be more well rested. We saw him absolutely flash in the Washington game. He had 2 sacks and a couple tackles, 3 tackles and 2 sacks and a tackle for a loss. Give me a repeat. Give me a repeat of that.
I love it. Once again, I said it earlier in the show. The winner of the trenches is going to be the winner of this game. And if we're looking up front, it's got to start with Mateo. Obviously you got the Jamari Caldwells, you got the Derek Harmons, who his draft stock's been skyrocketing recently. You have a Jordan Birch who didn't play the first time around, who is finally fully healthy again. But Mateo's he has been the anchor of that defensive line so far this season. And I think one other thing haven't really talked about yet at this point is Ohio State. They're missing a very, very, very key piece on their offensive line, albeit they have been for a couple of weeks now, out for the season, obviously. But I think when you're giving away even those small advantages to a defensive line as talented as Oregon's, that could spell problems for you. And maybe it's not one of those things where we see, 6, 7, 8 sacks on the stat sheet. But if Will Howard's under constant pressure in this game, which I think could be a very real possibility, we saw what happens when he has to move around the pocket and navigate a little bit, and he's not quite as comfortable. Not to say he's not a great playmaker at times. He's made some absolutely astounding plays throughout the season. However, I think all Oregon fans watching this video right now would take Will Howard trying to escape the pocket and make something happen that way, as opposed to sitting in a clean pocket and relying on your secondary the entire time. So I think Mateo's a great pick. I do think Mateo gets at least a sack today. Just kind of the way they utilize them, move them around a little bit, use them in different techniques. I think that could spell a little bit of trouble for that Ohio State offensive line.
For sure. All right, so we're gonna go ahead wrap it up. Happy New Year's to everybody at High Top Sports Oregon. Thank you for our we're not a year old yet, but we're getting close. Thank you for all the views and the comments and everything. I appreciate it. The boss man Shelton appreciates it, and I know Derek the Duck appreciates it. We will reconvene after today and see how these playoffs kind of march out and see what it looks like. I'm hoping that the run defense shows up. I think that's something that I have been extremely worried about over the past several weeks. But all it takes is one game. They show up and it's fine. So, but I want to thank our proud sponsors, BetUS. They've been powering us all year long. Any last words, Derek?
No, man, it's just I'm excited about it. If the high top community doesn't see me any longer, just understand Oregon lost, and I'm just too depressed to show my face on camera again. So that might be a possibility as well, but I'm feeling good about it. We'll see how I'm feeling in about 8 hours from now.
Gotcha. All right, guys, we will go ahead and wrap it up. We will see you later. Thank our proud sponsor, BetUS, and we are out.